Okay, it's day 128. This is part one, and there's few times in American history where all of American history comes down to the happenings of a few blocks. But this is one of those times. One can think of great battles in history, like Gettysburg with Little Round Top and Joshua Lawrence Chamberlain. But this history is almost like civil history, and almost the only comparison you could make is the Watergate Hotel. But this is much more sophisticated than the Watergate Hotel, and there's many more occurrences in the same area, in the same dog walk area that you could do in a 5-minute dog walk. You could see all these places. It's almost like having Ford's Theater, the Watergate Hotel, the Teapot Dome, and every other Iran-Contra, all within, where Fido can, basically smell every part of the whole walk in 3 to 5 minutes. You sort of have this ability when you come to Washington, D.C. and walk down Pennsylvania Avenue. But outside of that, I can't think of a place outside of Washington, D.C. where more history is told. And really the future, the key here is we're not talking about something in the past. We're talking about all past is prologue. We're talking about the future of our country, a coup that is currently going on. So we're in the middle of this coup. So if you don't remember, obviously Trump wins the election. The Awans do their thing with getting all the equipment out of Capitol Hill and so forth. The Awans at the end of February, beginning of March, leave the country. At least Hina Alvi does. I believe that Imran does as well. And all of a sudden, in that space of time, between the inauguration and March 7th, the Ides of March, let's call it March 6th, we have 8 Russian diplomats die in that period of time. We also have Russian oligarchs die. Lots of them die. Billionaires die. So that sets this up. We're talking about a very small space of time between the end of January and the beginning of March, Ides of March, where 8 Russian diplomats die. And one of the Russian oligarchs that's died, the last one, the 8th one, is this Oronov. Think of oro like gold, and then nov, everything ends in nov in Russia, right? Russia. So think of Oronov here. He looks the part of every bit the Russian gangster, the Russian mafia figure. He dies here, supposedly after a long illness, and it's always the brother-in-law that says that. It's never the wife or the etc. But anyway, and then Bernie Wisnant, an EB5 guy, I believe, dies right here on the beach. I seem to remember when we walked this beach that there was these structures, these light structures along here. I remember this white, older, kind of dilapidating condo here, and kind of had fallen into disuse, and I remember Bernie Wisnant's body being somewhere in there. If that's not the case, that's not really important. What is important is now, with the PP dossier, a year and 13 months now into the PP dossier, the key architect, the key person giving this information to Christopher Steele, this foreign British spy, the key Russian spy, giving this information to the key British spy, which then gives it to Fusion GPS to sort of give it a color of law, is a guy by the name of Sergei Millian. And Sergei Millian is the one who says, I put all the Russian oligarchs into the Trump Beach Hotel here, the Trump Hollywood Hotel. So it's very important to understand that this is the funnel point for all of the Russian organized crime that's been happening basically since 1993 with the Clintons. And this is the focal point. They want them close to be able to tap their money and access their money, meet with them to do investments, etc. This is probably where Uranium One was negotiated. This is where Alpha Bank is working and so forth. And if not at the Trump Hotel, and people will remember our walk here, the other candidate is this area for Bernie Wisnant. Remember, the way these Russian oligarchs are getting in the country is EB5s. And now we've got 3 EB5 lawyers, one of them dead right on the beach underneath the negotiating area. So is that a reminder? Who knows? This may have been redeveloped since we were there, so it may be this spot, but it was one of these kind of secluded spots where it looked like the body had been dumped. If you move a little bit further down past these condos, you get into the Diplomat Hotel, which is the Diplomat Oceanfront Residences. Okay, so there's another area kind of confined there. And then you get into the more commercial, I'll zoom out a little bit, the more commercial Diplomat Hotel. Now, if the oligarchs end over at Hollywood Beach, Uranium One, Debbie Wasserman Schultz, all that, as far as the Russian organized crime goes, is negotiated here in the Diplomat, probably in these 3 floors here on the top, or either side of these 3 floors. So again, this is a remarkable landmark in American history. So I'll move a little bit down the beach here and get into bringing people in. Where are these people coming from? Where are these EB5 people coming from? So I'm going to use 3800 Ocean as sort of just a placeholder. This is where we had walked, and Jason and I had met with his ex and so forth, and I'm not going to obviously say anywhere in there. Thank you to his ex for saying, yes, we did go to Miami Mama yesterday, so hopefully that whole thing has been cleared up. Of a typical person I would bring in as EB5, and I'm right here for Compromat. The whole thing that the Russians organized crime used overseas was called Compromat. That's using the women to compromise these guys. Andy McCabe, low-light cameras. If you don't believe me, just watch their own film called Operation Underground, how they do it with the low-light cameras, the Freytag cameras. I'm not the one who created the website. I'm not the one who bought those cameras. I'm not the one who set up the GSA schedule for law enforcement to buy those cameras. So if you have an issue with that, Compromat, if you have an issue with any of that, ask Oleg Deripaska about it, ask Andy McCabe about it. These people are coming in on the EB5s. Here's the first law firm where Bogacheva starts in 2013. Again, this is before all the disruption that happens. This is before the big Mueller indictment with the 13 people. One of the people involved shares a name very closely and shares a lot of educational legal training in Moscow and all over Russia with this law firm. So they start right here. You can see how close that is to our kind of hive. Deep Uranium calls it a hive. I used to call it just kind of more of a honeypot type of area. There's your Miami Mama. So there's your Miami Mama coming in. So she's maybe of a nubile age there, this Miami Mama. So you can bring her in, and you get 2 for the price of 1 because she's also carrying a baby. So she becomes a U.S. citizen, and also the baby becomes a U.S. citizen, and there you have it. And that is the operation. So this in microcosm here explains the whole type of infiltration, the whole methodology of Compromat, the whole methodology of selling Russia by the pound, the whole methodology of Andy McCabe using color of law enforcement for personal enrichment rather than law enforcement. And it explains all the deaths of the Russian ambassadors. It explains the deaths of the Russian oligarchs. It explains the death of law enforcement people that are whistleblowers that tell the truth. It explains almost all of where we are exactly right now in American history